First and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Kyla, and I'm the content specialist for InUni Global. Now, before we begin, a quick note to everyone. So please know that this session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be shared with you right after this session. Also, we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. So, our speaker for today will be very happy to answer that one. So, even at the start, if you have any questions right now, kindly use the Q&A box to utilize that one. So, yeah, I'm very excited to introduce our speaker for today. So, I would like to welcome Carla Brown, the Director of Financial Aid and CVIS Principal Designated School Official, so PDSO. With more than 14 years of experience in higher education, Carla has dedicated her career to helping students and families navigate the financial aspects of education and making higher education more accessible, understandable, and empowering for all. So it's really wonderful to have you today, Carla. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's our pleasure. I'm also pleased to welcome our team from InUni, Sukanya and Jinx, who will be at the back end to support us. So, for the agenda for this webinar, this session will cover key topics to help students understand and prepare for studying at FMU. So starting with an overview of the tuition and the total cost of attendance, followed by a look of what makes student life at FMU unique in terms of campus culture, activities, and support services, but will mostly revolve ourselves around the funding and scholarships for today. It will also be discussed today about the scholarship opportunities available for international students like you, including eligibility and application tips. And we would also be concluding that with practical guidance on financial planning and budgeting to help students manage expenses effectively while studying. All right, so for today, I would like to hand over the spotlight to Carla as she will be talking through a lot for today.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. First off, we're going to talk about the agenda today. As Miss Kyla mentioned, I'll be talking about the what makes the student life at FMU unique, understanding the cost of tuition and attendance, some of the scholarship opportunities that are available, some financial planning and budgeting, and what the pre-entry orientation will entail. All right. So, why Florida Memorial University? First off, we were founded in 1879. So, we've been around for 147 years. We are South Florida's only historically Black college and university, and we offer welcoming, career focused education in the heart of Miami Gardens with students from over 30 plus countries and a faculty to student ratio of about 1 to 16. So at Florida Memorial University, we have a personalized learning platform where we have a lot of small classes and dedicated faculty support for every student. So that's very unique to the culture at Florida Memorial University. We also offer a diverse community, so it's an inclusive campus. And as I mentioned, we're celebrating global perspectives from over 30 plus countries. We have industry connections, so we have strong ties to some of Miami's booming businesses and tech sectors. And most importantly, we offer international support, dedicated services for visa, housing, and campus transition. So here at Florida Memorial University, we have a team of 7 designated school officials, with one of them being the principal, designated school officials such as myself. So we offer that individualized support. And of course, we have dedicated designated school officials depending on how you matriculate and advance throughout your educational career. So that's what makes us unique. So, as we talk about the estimated annual undergraduate costs, understand that the total cost of attendance is estimated to be around 39,018. So, the breakdown entails what the school charges you directly, which every student that walks the halls at Florida Memorial University or attends online, they are charged tuition and general fees. If you are living on campus, then you are also charged for housing. And if you're living on campus and you're charged for housing, then you are required to take out the meal plan. Then we also look at other educational living related expenses, which it's not necessarily what the institution charges you, but it helps create a budget for you to understand, like it may cost about $12,000 to live. That's not a set number, it may fluctuate, but that's the maximum cost that we budget for all students to spend outside of the charges that appear on their account. A good thing to know is that our general fees, what they do is they include the book and learning resources, technology fees, and all of the student support services. So that in essence, the general fees is what's charged for all the resources in order for you to be a successful student at Florida Memorial University. So we also have scholarship opportunities. First off, you have the automatic scholarship that offers a 8.5% reduction in annual tuition and fees, right? So that will be applied as a fund source to your actual account. So you may be charged the full tuition and then you'll have a fund source that will show the reduction, right? It'll be for the amount that the tuition is being reduced by. Then you will also have the opportunity for athletic scholarships. That's, of course, based on talent and merit. It's very competitive and it's available for all student athletes that qualify across Florida Memorial University sports programs.
Okay, before we go to the next slide, Carla, I do have a question for you. So, one of the biggest considerations for many of our students, internationally, or even the local students that we have, is when choosing our university is the affordability. So, we'd like for them to, understand the financial support available to them. So, with that in mind, I'd like to touch on a scholarship question, which is, scholarships build highly competitive, and many students are, eager to understand more. So, could you walk us through how scholarship decisions are made at FMU, and if you could also share some, qualities or achievements or characteristics that makes a student a strong candidate when it comes to the application?
Of course. So, as you know, a lot of our institutional scholarships are based on academic performance, and we don't want to deter our international student population from applying. Although it's specific to domestic students, we do encourage international students to apply because what the scholarship application does, even if they are domestic, it places them into an application pool. So, when and if international funding does become available, if we have an international student that has applied, they're already in the general population pool that we're able to select from. Most of our scholarship opportunities are available for students that have achieved a 2.5 grade point average from high school. So, of course, that does require the diploma translation and things of that nature. And then some of our scholarships are based on merit. If you, let's say, perform in the choir or the band or for an athletic sport. So typically, those are things that they would look at. That's not what for the general population pool, they're mainly academic scholarships, but there are opportunities throughout the academic year that international students will have the ability to be chosen for those scholarships. And it's best that we have an application on file so that we can pull from that general population pool.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. But building on it, I would also like to ask if the scholarships are also renewable throughout the student studies and if there are any requirements that they should meet.
Yes, so basically the scholarship renewal criteria is dependent on what scholarship. So if a donor provides a scholarship opportunity to international students and they're mentioning that it is a renewable scholarship, that'll also be something that we would advise. So with every scholarship application or any scholarship opportunity, we also send out a scholarship agreement, which also what it does is it goes through the criteria, the eligibility requirements, and if it's a renewable scholarship, what the renewal criteria is. So it's basically dependent on the actual scholarship.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. So, those insights will certainly help a lot of our students better understand the financial support that's available for them. So, yeah, with that in mind, let's move on to the next topic.
Okay, before we move on too, I also wanted to mention that we do have a dedicated scholarships email. So if the students email the scholarships inbox, which is scholarships at fmu.edu, we do have a template that we send out to offer international students scholarship opportunities that we perform research for all domestic and international student population. So we can send you that information if you happen to reach out for that. Okay, so what do international students need? So of course, we need academic and identity documents such as their high school certificate or official transcripts. And as I mentioned, that does require translation. That is something that the institution typically does and then evaluates the transcript. We also need a valid passport. So when we're creating the I-20, we do want you to complete an international student information form, but we also cross-reference it to the valid passport just to make sure that we captured all the names and all of the pertinent information that we need to complete and create an I-20. And then we also need English language proficiency score. Of course, you know that you must be proficient in the English language to be able to attend an institution within the United States. So the middle column also mentions the accepted English language tests and the scores that are acceptable. And then lastly, we need you to present financial documentation. So to support the I-20 issuance, you must demonstrate approximately anywhere between 30,000 to 39,000. And the difference in that amount is because if you're planning to live off campus, your cost may be a little less. But if you're living on campus, we want you to budget for the maximum amount.
Hmm. With that, since we have international students that are watching us right now, since they and their families, start to prepare for the cost of studying abroad, it's really important to have a clear financial strategy in place. So, from the very beginning. So, for families who are relying on savings, sponsorships or student loans, or any other resources that they could have for funding, what key financial planning considerations would you recommend, Carla, since you also have the number of years that you worked for FMU in the financial sector? What would you recommend for them and to keep that they should be keeping in their mind?
I would actually recommend exactly what you've mentioned, whether it be through savings and checking accounts, through trust funds. If, let's say, your parents had been saving for years, I know Florida students, because we're based in Florida, they have the Florida prepaid, where from birth until college years, they've been saving, if it's even a quarter a day, to help pay for education. Anything that can represent that you can afford to go to school here can be presented. And that goes in the form of if you own a business and you're able to present that information as well, that'll also help.
Thank you so much. And then since we already have a few questions coming in, I'll just jump to what's, relevant since we're already in this topic. So, when it comes to the preparation, how early should students begin preparing with regards to the scholarship application?
So the scholarship application is actually open. We do not close it at any time. So if you visit the Florida Memorial website under admissions and financial aid, to the left, there's types of aid. And if you expand to the scholarship portion and scroll down, you'll see the scholarship application. So it's important that you apply because you can apply as soon as after this call. And of course, if scholarship opportunities are ever available, then we will definitely reach out to that pool of candidates.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Carla. All right, that was actually very wonderful explanation. Now let's move on to the next part, which is the re-entry,
Of
re-entry
course.
orientation?
Of course, this is brand new. We are actually in the process of creating this orientation, but what we find beneficial is for students to be prepared upon their entry into the United States. And then, of course, once they're in the United States, what their responsibility is as a student of Florida Memorial University. So, what things that we cover, of course, are the immigration and entry requirements, what you need to travel. Of course, when you arrive and the check-in process. And then what's very important in all of this, if nothing else is important, it's important to maintain your F1 status and then understanding employment regulations, on campus, CPT, OPT, what the housing and living arrangements are, the banking and personal finances, along with health insurance and healthcare requirements. But then, as we dive more into your experience as a student, we want to also go over the academic expectations and classroom culture, what's involved as it relates to the campus safety and emergency procedures on campus, the transportation and how to navigate around Miami. And of course, the technology and communication is always important, but also the cultural adjustment and student life. And then we'll talk a lot about the student support services that are available for international students. We do have an international embassy on campus. So that's also important to go through. And then how traveling throughout your program, how that ties into everything, what the requirements are, what our recommendations are. We take pride in being very precautious. Although, travel endorsement signatures are valid for 1 year, I always recommend students to just double check because what we don't want is for any issues for you to re-enter the country. And me as the PDSO, I'm the only one that can escalate a matter. Our designated school officials can still assist, but they'll have to wait the normal time frame. So we try to be very proactive in avoiding any issues as it relates to traveling. And then, of course, building community and campus involvement. So we'll be talking about a lot of the campus activities and things to look forward to if you decide to take on, living the campus life.
Thank you so much. That's really wonderful to know. Now, for the cost, before we go to the Q&A session, so for the cost, usually it's really, often one of the biggest considerations when it comes to, international students and their families when, choosing a university. So beyond tuition alone, Carla, students are evaluating scholarships, living expenses, for those exploring study opportunities in the United States this 2026. What makes FMU one of the more affordable options
Mhm.
available?
Well, one thing that I do like with Florida Memorial University is that we do not charge out of state tuition. So, if you reside in Florida or you reside in Georgia, you're paying the same tuition. Also, we pride ourselves in, we are the Florida Memorial Lions, and we pride ourselves in telling students that we roar in four. So we do charge a flat fee structure for students that are attending full time within like 12 to 18 credits. So whether you're taking 12 credits or 18 credits, your tuition stays the same. Whereas at other institutions, they are charged per credit hour. So you can you don't have the ability to take advantage of taking the most classes and paying the same tuition. Whereas other institutions, the more classes you take, the more your tuition will cost. That's one thing that Florida Memorial does differently that I really, really, really encourage students to take advantage of.
Fantastic to know. At least the students would have options available for them. And at the same time, it's a really good edge that FMU has. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for that explanation. And we now move on to the Q&A session where we'll be answering the questions that we have from our viewers in real time. So looking at the Q&A box, I already see a lot. So let's dive right in. So, first that we have here is could you walk us through the most common, mistakes international students make when applying for scholarships?
Um, We're not finding a lot of mistakes that students make. We just encourage students to put all the pertinent information on there. Of course, in identifying the students, we know that in certain countries, students have multiple last names, and then they possibly apply to the school with one last name. So now it makes it difficult. I always say in this case, more is better. You know how they say less is more, but more is better in this case. Put
Yeah.
all the pertinent information that we need, such as all of your names.
So it has to be complete. And with that, what are the financial documents that they need to prepare and submit?
So, are we talking in terms of applying for a scholarship or for applying to have their I-20 created?
Uh, this is for the scholarship.
So for the scholarships, all they need to prepare, um, theoretically is just their name, and it usually requires an essay of some sort.
Mm.
I would say to hold on to your financial documentation because I'm not 100% sure on what donors would require. But if they were requiring, if you're being sponsored, I would, of course, recommend that you have a sponsor letter as well as any bank statements to support. What the sponsor is assisting you with. And then always have a letter of recommendation on site. Just for precaution. I'm not saying these are things that are required, but I would so recommend that you have it on hand just in the event that they do ask for that information.
Okay, thank you so much. So, the our international students would have an idea on what to submit and what they should be preparing beforehand. Thank you. So
Of
after
course.
sending those requirements, Carla, when does the student receive the offer letter with regards to the scholarship?
So, to be honest, and just like we tell our domestic students as well, is that a scholarship application doesn't necessarily guarantee approval. Even though you meet the eligibility requirements, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will. So, what I recommend is just to move forward in the event that you're not getting the scholarship, because just for the sake of planning on a worst case scenario, and in the event that you are approved, then it's the greatest thing ever. But don't, as I would say, don't put your eggs all in one basket and rely on it
Mhm.
and then it not come through and you not have a backup plan. So just that was just a brief explanation of my suggestion. But typically, scholarships that are available don't become available right away. So it all depends on the window of time frame for which, let's say you start school in August and September, an international scholarship opportunity is available. The donor typically, and these are questions we ask them as well, how soon will our students know regarding it? And they'll give us that. So before we present the information to students, and when you become a student as well, I forgot to mention this, you become a part of our scholarship community. So now we have a scholarships portal, and it's not just for domestic students. International scholarship opportunities will be on the scholarship portal. You'll have access to it. We also send out a weekly scholarship blast email for all scholarship opportunities. So I don't want you to think, oh, that's domestic. Let me ignore that email. No, it might be a scholarship opportunity available for an international student. And we also host Scholarship Tuesdays, in which we try to have a presence and assist students with, of course, what they need to apply for scholarships. So we typically ask them, how soon will students know? And if we have that information, we're not gatekeepers. We're not going to hold that from you. We'll let you know. But as I mentioned, I wouldn't operate in a sense to say I applied, so I'm going to get it type of deal.
Mhm.
We tell that to our domestic students as well.
Yeah, so it's not guaranteed, but of course, um,
Right.
they should be doing their best also to submit everything that they could. And yeah, thank you for answering that one. Uh, does FMU also provide any automatic scholarship based on academic achievement? And if there are, what are the eligibility requirements for that?
Currently, we do not for international students, but as I mentioned, we don't want to deter an international student from applying for scholarships. We may have some global opportunities available. Our minimum requirement for scholarships, if we look at it from the domestic standpoint, is 2.5 and above entering in. Right? So that would mean as a high school senior, let's say, and you want to attend Florida Memorial, you would have to have a minimum of 2.5, right? To
Mm-hmm.
renew the scholarship, of course, you have to make sure that you maintain a full-time status. So as I mentioned earlier with tuition, we recommend students to take, let's say, 15 credits, right? Full-time is 12 or more, but let's say you take 15 and you have to drop a class, you're still in a full-time range because classes are about 3 credits each. So you'll still be taking 12 credits and it won't impact your eligibility for scholarship opportunities. Keep in mind, most scholarship donors require students to have a full-time status. They don't necessarily have to take 15 credits, they just have to take 12 or more. Also, you want to make sure for renewal criteria that your account doesn't have any infractions. We don't want to worry about that in a sense, but in the event that, you had a parking violation or a charge for, doing something unfavorable, you want to make sure your account is free of that because that is also what goes into the scholarship renewal criteria. And of course, a 2.5 GPA. And that's in the event that, you qualify for any of our global scholarships opportunities. And more than likely, if your donor requires, I'm sorry, if your donor allows for the scholarship to be renewed, those are also certain things that you would look for because we also have to make sure that students are maintaining eligibility. I also recommend that students sign up for the United Negro College Fund. We are a UNCF powered school, so that is a scholarship opportunity, and they do have opportunities available for international students as well. It's an external scholarship. However, international students do have the ability, and that I mentioned that because that UNCF is one of the donors that mid-year will come and say, I need 5 students from this country,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll open it up and, it becomes a lottery system. We won't just necessarily pick 5 students. We'll make it fair and,
Yes.
come up with a game plan as far as how we'll choose those 5. So that's definitely something that we recommend as well.
That's another good opportunity or like an option for international students. So,
Yes.
yeah, I agree with you. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. So, if you could have, if you could place that in different options, if you could apply for, more ways, then that would be really wonderful. More chances of winning for everyone. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Do you also, provide Empower, or like do you also does FMU accept Empower loans for international students?
I believe so. That is something I would have to definitely look up on. In our office, though, we do have a brochure for an international student loan that's actually interest free. The only caveat to that is that it does require that the international student have a cosigner. So I think that'll be very helpful as well because, they hardly ever even offer interest-free student loans to domestic students.
Hmm.
So it's definitely something I would take advantage of. You can always stop by our office to pick up a brochure.
Thank you so much for clarifying that one. Additionally, so if, for example, a student's financial circumstance changed throughout their studies, what support or guidance is available for the students through FMU's financial aid office? Like, what else can FMU offer them?
Right. As I mentioned earlier, we do offer like the interest-free student loans. You also always want to reach out to the bursar, which is within our student accounts department. So there's a fine line. Financial aid assists with finding resources, but assisting with the balance is more so on our student account side. So you can definitely reach out to student accounts and see what type of payment plan, what type of payment you can make in good faith, what type of payment you can, and when I say what type, I'm also talking about amounts. the amount of payment that you can make to be cleared in order to roll over to the next term. So it's not necessarily a requirement that a student be at a zero balance to move on to the next term. There is a threshold in which you pay down to that you're able to roll your balance over. Just keep in mind, it's still a balance. So now you've just added that balance to your next term's balance, but that's definitely an option as well. I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, thank you so much for that. It's really nice to know that they have a lot of, you know, guidance from FMU that they could get out of, not just for, financial aspects, but also since FMU has a community of international students as well, at least they would be able to have that sort of relationship with others, and at the same time they would be able to get the help they need or the guidance to adjust well in a different country, because it's not easy to adjust, coming from a different culture or country, than going alone by yourself in the United
Right.
States. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any more questions coming in? Feel free to chime in. If there are none for the Q&A, I think we're done with all the questions, because Carla already addressed a lot of our questions for today. So yeah, I think we're good. So if anyone has, additional questions, feel free to message FMU, or Carla, could you please tell us again or mention the official email for with regards to the scholarship or financial, what do you call this? Financial aspects when it comes to applications or concerns.
Of course. I have dropped in the chat the FMU International. We have a dedicated inbox. It's monitored and managed by all of our DSOs, so they are well versed in any conversation as it relates to the international process. We also have the scholarships at fmu.edu. Just always indicate, that you're asking as an international student, just so that we can get the right information on over to you. And if you have general questions, I do recommend that you send them to the FMU International at fmu.edu email address.
Thank you. Again, for those who do not see the email address, that's fmuinternational@fmu.edu, and scholarships at fmu.edu. So thank you so much for sharing that. So one last thing, Carla, before I let you go, I do want to ask if you have any final piece of advice or tips for our aspiring international students that we have here. Any piece of advice that you want to share, considering that they want to study abroad by themselves?
Yes, actually, I definitely want to encourage you to build that rapport with your designated school officials. As I mentioned, we have 7 on campus, and we're here to support you in every step of the way. I recommend that, not saying that we're your babysitters, but we are responsible for you while you are studying in the States. So it's definitely encouraged that you keep that open communication with us. You also send things in writing, of course, because that's your proof that you reached out. And also, I like to tell students, and I pride myself when I respond in emails, I use code words so that in the event that you ever have to search for an email, you can search for certain words. But also keep in mind to always keep your I-20 on you and signed. It's like your driver's license when you're in the country. That's your way to prove to anyone that you belong in the States. But also, I know I can't speak for all DSOs, but I know me personally, I give you a hard copy, but I also send you the electronic copy in the event that the hard copy is either lost or damaged. But always, before you travel, reach out to a DSO, to that dedicated inbox, just to make sure everything is okay, because we definitely don't want you to run into any issues. We want it to be a very wonderful experience while you're in the States or if you're traveling abroad. You're on mute again.
Sorry about that. So thank you so much for sharing your tips. That was a very nice and wonderful final piece of advice for our international students. So that was an amazing session with you, by the way. So thank you again so much. That concludes our webinar for today. And once again, thank you to our lovely speaker, Carla Brown, for sharing your valuable insights and practical examples that our students can apply as they begin their academic journey at FMU. Now, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and follow FMU social media platforms as well for any questions and updates about Florida Memorial University. Now, thank you all so much for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and we look forward to welcome you again on our next webinar. Until then, take care, stay safe, and goodbye, everyone.